Hello, I'm Melissa from D&E Crafts, and today I'm going to show you how to make this Christmas wreath keyring. Now, for this design you will need approximately 16 white bands, 16 red and 16 green bands, and 3 bells in the colour of your choice, 1 keyring, and you'll need 2 additional green bands and 1 additional red band if you want to make the holly to go on the top of the wreath. Now, the bands that I use are from Daisy Loom, and the link to their website will be in the description of this video, so go and have a look at the products that they offer. So in order to make this design today, you need to have your loom in the staggered configuration, and we'll be using the centre and the left hand side of the loom. Now, each set of bands that we lay will be double bands, so you'll need 2 for each colour on each pin that we place these bands. So starting from the centre pin, we're going to take these 2 bands and pull them diagonally across to the left hand side, and we're going to place it on the second pin. So now, taking 2 red bands, we're going from the first pin on the left hand side and we're taking it across to the third pin on the centre row. Now, I'm also making sure when I'm placing these bands that there is plenty of room at the top of each pin, so that when we come to loop the bands at the end, there is enough room to place the bands back onto the original peg. So now, taking 2 green bands, we're going to go from the second peg on the centre row, and we're just going to drag them diagonally across to the third pin on the left hand side. So now, going from the second pin on the left hand side, we're going to drag the white bands diagonally to the 4th pin on the centre row, and then the 2 red bands from the 3rd peg on the centre row out to the 4th peg on the left hand side. Now, with 2 green bands, we're going from the 3rd peg on the left hand side, and we're going to drag them across to the 5th peg on the centre row. So at this stage you will notice that each set of bands are going in a diagonal pattern, and we have this for each of the colours, and this is how we need to continue up the loom. So the 2 white bands, just stretch them gently out to the left hand side and push them down here. So with a further 2 red bands, we're just going to stretch them again diagonally to the centre row, and then we're going to go from the end of this peg here with 2 green bands, and we're going diagonally out to this peg on the left hand side. Okay, so each set of bands that you place will go in either from that peg to that peg, or that one to that one, and we'll work our way up the loom. And with our white bands again. And the way to remember it is, whatever colour you start with, you'll always go white, red, green, white, red, green. Or if you do it in a different layout, then you just have to remember which colours that you place first, second and third, so that you can maintain that pattern up the loom. So it's just important to keep placing the bands in the right order as when you come to loop them, you'll notice that this pattern actually kind of repeats itself, but the opposite way, back this way. Also, to remember that the loom here, if you have an arrow on the centre of your loom, then it needs to be facing away from you, so that when we turn the loom around, we are hooking with the pegs that have the half circle there, so that we can get our hook underneath the bands on the loom. So we are almost done. Just placing the last few bands now. Making sure that there's plenty of room to hook the bands back up the loom. Okay, so that's the last two white bands placed to the centre of the middle row, and the last two red bands being placed to the last peg on the left hand side. So now we're just going to, I'll just show you how that appears on the loom, so you can see that how the pattern flows down the loom until the end. Now, in order to start the hooking process, we need to take one white band and we just place it on the top of the center peg, and we just pull it out slightly to the side, and then we just hook it onto your fingertip there, just so that we can start looping these bands. So we're just going to start with these two red bands on this bottom pin on the right hand side, and we're just going to pull them diagonally to the center of the loom, to the second peg here. Now we're just going to take this band off of my fingertip, and we're going to place it onto the last pin, and we're also going to remove this third band on the center pin, and we're just going to loop that on top of the band there on that bottom right hand side. Now we're just going to take the two white bands and we're just going to pull them gently diagonally across to meet the other white bands there. So as you can see, this has created a teardrop shape, and this is how we know that we are hooking the bands in the right way, if there is a teardrop shape working its way up the loom. So now just going back to these green bands here, we're just going to pull these gently diagonally across and around the pin. So just remember to hook these diagonally, so following the pattern of where the bands have already come from. And now it gets a little bit trickier because we have to go inside the 4 red bands to hook the bottom 2, and just pull them up from there and place them diagonally across there. And again, this is how we're going to hook the remainder of the bands. We're going to go inside the 4 there, pull these 2 bottom bands out and gently stretch them across to the diagonal pin. And this, we're just going to work our way up the loom, going diagonally up. Now it's important also to remember here at this stage that each peg that you're looping, the tension on these 2 rows is going to increase after every loop that we make. So it's important that you do take your time over this stage, because you'll notice that there's a lot of pressure on the bands as well as the pins. So just going to keep working away up the loom, just following the diagonal pattern as before. gently just stretching them bands out. Now here's where it get a little bit trickier, because the further we go up, the tighter the bands become. And that's just because the distance that they're being stretched is quite a long way at this point. And there's a lot of tension behind the bands, which increases the tension going forwards. So gently stretch the bands. If they are particularly tight, take your time in pulling them bands over, because the last thing we would want at this stage is for the bands to snap. So as you can see, just gently stretching them out. And finally, the last set of white bands, we're just going to gently stretch these to the center row of the top pin where we started. And then what we want to do is move all 4 of these bands across to the peg, the first peg on the right hand side. So just gently put your hook inside the top 4 bands and release some of that pressure there, and then we're just going to place it onto that pin. Now if we just gently push down there so that we've created a little bit more space at the top of the pin, we need to take the 4 green bands here and place them on the top of that pin as well. This just is so that we can then tie off we can tie this off in a moment, hopefully then securing the design. So this is how it should look from the start to finish of the looping. So obviously we started this end, so you can see the first white band here, and then working the way up the loom with all the teardrop shapes on the 2 pins. So now we're just going to place our hook inside all of these bands on the top pin. We're just going to pull them to the side and take 1 white band, and we're just going to place it onto the hook, and we're just going to pull it through the center, and then I'm going to secure this with an S-clip for the time being, just to make sure that that design is secured. And then I can pull this off the loom. So at this point, because there is so much tension on the loom, which you can see the loom is bending in the middle, we need to be quite cautious about how we take this off the loom so that it doesn't snap in the process. So we're just going to take your hook and we're just going to pull these gently off of one side and take them over the top of the pin. So gently take it off, and also in doing it like this, it takes some of the pressure off of the center pin, and then we just have that on the one side, of which we can release all of the pressure when we work our way back up the loom. So just work your way down the loom, removing these bands. As you can see, it's the white bands that are causing the most pressure and tension in this design. So if we can just release that red band there. Now I'm just going to grab an S-clip and secure the bottom of this side of the design for the moment. Just in case it does come undone. Okay, just turn the loom around and then we'll work our way back up. If we can hold the S-clip there, just as we gradually release the pressure this side. Now the design that we're making will need a little bit of stretching out once we've done this bit. It shouldn't take too long to do in order to get the desired shape that we want. Okay, now this last pin is where all of the current tension is. So we just need to put our hook inside all of the bands there and just gently take it off of the top of the pin. So we can just push the loom aside for now and we can take our hook out of the top band, and then we just need to stretch this out a little bit to get the right shape. This might take a little bit of time to get the desired shape that you want there, and then just stretch it in the middle. Okay, so now we have the first part of the design. We can then just see how we're going to place them bands together at the top in order to make the circle for the wreath. So we're just going to take this S-clip off by placing the band over your two fingers there and just pulling the S-clip off, and then stretch the bands up so that I can place the hook through the centre of them bands, and we can release the white band at the top. Okay, actually, let's just take the hook out again there. We use the band that's already in the top of this design and just pull the hook, the band that's on the hook, closer to that end so that this end doesn't come undone. We're just going to go to the other end where the other S-clip is. We're just going to take the S-clip off and remove the white band this end. Don't worry, your design shouldn't come undone because the bands are holding that in place quite nicely. So then we're just going to place our hook through the 4 red bands, and hooking these might be a little bit tricky if they're not in the right order. So providing you have all 4 on there, don't worry too much, it should still work. So once the 4 bands are on there, we can then retake this white band and put it over the top. So as you'll see here, we have the white band which is through the centre of the top of the design there, and we have the 4 red bands which come from this end of the design, and then we've re-hooked the white band from the other side so that it looks like that on the other side. Okay, and then what we want to do is pull the white band through the centre, and now we just want to take the far or the right hand side band over the top of that band, and then we can pull that tight at the top and just twist it so that you get the right shape for the wreath, and you can just put it across. So at this stage now we should have a wreath that looks something like that. Okay, and so you can choose either side of how you want the wreath to look. I've chosen to go for this side, so you're not going to get the kind of perfect circle, but if you fiddle and stretch the bands, you may get more of a circle there. So with this one, because this band is looped here, I'm just going to grab the key ring and place this onto this band, and that just means that that's secure and that can't then loosen and undo the whole design. So that's the first part. If you wanted to just leave it like that, then you would have a Christmas wreath like that. But what we're going to do is we're now going to add the 3 bells to the design. Now, in order to do this, you need to take 3 single white bands, and also you may need a bit of string because the top of the bells is quite small. So in order to get the band through, we need string, and we put it through the center of the band. And then we grab the 2 ends together. And then we can put it through the top of the bell there. And then once that's through, we can gently pull the band through the top. So then you're left with a figure of 8 at the top of the bell, and we can just remove the string. And then what we're going to do is just select where you would like to place the bells. Now I, on the last one, chose to do it on the edge of the white, so that there was 2 coloured bands in the middle, then white, and then the 2 coloured bands, so that they were evenly spaced around the design. It's entirely up to you where you put these. I'm going to start with the green one at the bottom of the wreath. So what you just want to do is go inside the 4 white bands and place the one of the sides of the figure of 8 onto the hook, hold the other side of the figure of 8 and gently pull that through, and then we're just going to create another slip knot here, and the band snaps. So bear with me just a moment while I replace that. That potentially can happen if you stretch the bands too much. You don't get it too often, so that's good. So again, just place in another white band through the center of the bell, creating that figure of 8. So let's get between them 4 bands again, and let's see if we can do it without breaking the band this time. Just create that slip knot there by taking one end of the band over the top of the other and gently pull the band tight. Now, because there's a loose end of the band, we need to work the band through the design. So in order to do this, it can be a little bit tricky. You just need to figure out where you want the white band to go and where you're going to lift the bands in order to place the white band under. So in this case, we're going to go underneath these 4 green bands. We're just going to pull them up, put the band over the top of the hook and pull it underneath. And there's still a little bit of the band showing, so we'll go underneath these 4 green bands and we can pull that so that it's secure underneath them, and then it doesn't really show in the pattern at all. So if you wanted to, you could leave it just like that, but we're going to add 2 bells either side, so we're going to add one here and one here. So again, just place the string through the center of the band and join them, join the 2 ends at the top. You may need to twist it a little bit to make a point so that you're able to get the string through the center of the bow, and then just gently pull that through again. See the figure of 8 there? Place that to one side. Then again on this one we need to go inside the 4 white bands. Take one side of the figure of 8, gently pull that through, and then make another slip knot there and gently pull that tight. And again, we're going to do the same here. We are going to hide the white bands, so just go through the top of the green bands with the hook, pull that white band gently through. Again, you can reposition these bells a little bit, you are able to move them. Okay, so this one's a bit trickier because this one actually comes up to the knot that we've made at the top. So what we'll do, we'll just go through these 4 white bands here, and in fact we can pull the white band gently underneath, and we can work through these colours here. So just go underneath the red and we just pull it into the centre of the design and pull it through so that it doesn't actually show in the design. And again, we're just going to go under the green and pull that band back through the centre. Now we should see the 2 ends here, and we're going to try and hide these under these red bands here, and we're just going to pull them, that one there, into the centre, placing the red bands over the top so they're not noticeable and don't show in the design at all. This may come a little bit tricky, but if you have a lot of patience, you'll get that design just right. When you're happy with the bands there that aren't showing, we can go on and add the 3rd bell. So just taking another white band, taking the string and placing it through the centre, and twisting the top so that we can place it through the top of the bow. And pulling that through the centre and making that figure of 8. Come out to one side, and then we can reach in here, go underneath the 4 white bands, again take one side of the figure of 8 and gently pull that through. and then we're just going to make a slip knot here, place the other band and pull that through there and just tighten that, and then we're just going to weave this excess white band through the design so that you don't notice it too much. So you just go underneath the bands that are placed and just pull that through the designs pattern there. So now we've placed all 3 of the bells. The remaining piece of the puzzle, so to speak, is going to be the holly at the top. So for this you just need to take 2 green bands and 1 red band. Now with the red band you just need to place it over the hook, and just like making a cap band, we twist it over the hook 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, or as many times as possible, depending on how you like the berry to look. So then we will place 2 green bands, and I'm also going to place a red band on top, but I'll explain why that red band's there in a moment. We're just going to place all 3 of these bands, and then we're just going to pull this band that we've capped over the top. Gently just pull it over the top there. And that's not quite worked, so let's try that again. Can be a little bit tricky and a little bit fiddly, so don't worry if you don't do it first time. We just place the band over the hook 5 or 6 times. And place the 2 green and the red band on the hook and pull them tight with a fingertip through the middle of the band there, so that they're tight, so it should make it easier to push these bands over the top. So, and that doesn't always go to plan. Okay, we've done it now. So just move that to the centre if you can. Now you'll notice that we've taken a red band as well. This red band is to help place the holly at the top of the wreath. So this one we will be creating a slip knot with at the top of the wreath. So we just place our hook through the red band only, put it to the other side, grab the other end of the red band and just pull it through at the back. That creates the slip knot, and then we can place the holly where we want to, and then just pull the slip knot tight. And again with this one, because the red band is loose at the top, we're just going to feed it through the red bands to the side. So we're just going to feed it to the side. Now you can feed it once or as many times as you like into the design so that it holds it there. But when that's placed, that is the completed design. So there you go. one Christmas wreath keyring. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe to my channel and leave me a comment. Thank you.